We are so thankful that you guys are here. This is Connecting Things. If you've never been here before, this is a monthly speaker series that takes place highlighting and featuring amazing creative folks right here in the Orange County community. We generally meet here, but we also do a night event once a quarter, which those are awesome. Raise of hands, who's been to one of those? Woo! Those are amazing as well. So be sure to follow us on Instagram and other places so you know where we're having our next event and how you can join in on us. This morning we have the immense privilege of getting to hear from a gentleman by the name of Joshua Ariza. Give it up for Josh right now. Yeah, I've had the pleasure of knowing Josh for the last probably 4 or 5 years, and it's really great the talk that he'll get to be giving this morning just about freelance and his freelance journey. That's basically the amount of time that I've known Josh, was when he was working at Nike here in Costa Mesa, and then taking a bold step out and doing his own work. At this point, he's worked for a lot of really incredible people in the past, Red Bull and Nike. He works with Taco Bell and Stance and ESPN and Fox. Fox, not Fox News. He wanted to be really clear on that. Fox. Yeah. So Josh is going to get to share with us a little bit more about his journey, and I'm sure that we'll all have a lot to take away from it. So would you please join me in welcoming Josh Ariza to the stage?
Thanks, team. How many of you guys are freelancers? This is what you do. Yeah, cool. And how many of you hope to be at some point working for yourself in the future? By show of hands. Okay, cool. There's a few. This should pertain to pretty much everyone here, except for these two lazy guys right here. So I wanted to share with you a little bit of background in case you don't know me, and maybe you could get to know me. This is my beautiful wife who is pregnant, and that's her on the right. She's smiling in that photo because she felt her kicking her. We're having a little girl called Rooney Ariza. So thank you. It was easy. Thank you. I did it. This is my dog, Captain. I have a tattoo of him. He does not have a tattoo of me. I like to play outside. I like to have a good time in the snow and in the water. And I'd be doing more of that if I didn't also like to ride a motorcycle. I got in a motorcycle accident like 4 months ago. And I've been recovering. I haven't done a push-up for like 4 months, so my chest is looking like goo. I have a shared office space right now where I work with my good friend Chris, and then our other friend Doug, who owns a magazine. I built this space out. Actually, a lot of people come into the space and they go, "Man, I love these walls. You should do something with them." And they don't know that I actually did those walls. So here's another view of the office space. They're just friends. Sometimes Chris tries to do that to me in the office, but it doesn't go well. What have I done? What do I work on? I worked on some Star Wars socks. Anybody seen these? This is actually the brand new package. It has Lando in there, and he's probably my favorite character on the bottom right, just one over. They recreated the sets, and they shot all these in miniatures. I didn't know they were doing this, but an agency was hired by Stance to do these things. They look really, really great. This is actually probably my biggest project. I've worked for what would be probably bigger brands, but I've never had a project go this broad. So I had The Rock Instagrammed about them. Klay Thompson wore them, before he played, in Game 7, and lost. So I'm not good luck. Don't wear my socks. So I also did a helmet for Red Bull for an athlete called Nick Gepper. He was in the Olympics, and he's a skier. And he wore this helmet for probably like 2 seasons. He wore it basically every day and took photos of it. And I hit him up several times to get better photos of it, and he never responded. So these are the photos. I did stuff for Nike. This is a Lunar Lawn poster that is sort of based around the technology and the sole of a shoe. This is probably my favorite piece from there. I worked on the surf and skate stuff. I had a good time at Nike. Here's a freelance project I did for Airbnb where it was a kind of a live data visualization thing in real time. You could kind of search and see who's checking in places. I did probably over 300 icons for this project, so it took a long time. I have a brand called Chomp. Does anyone have a Chomp t-shirt? I'll give you a hat. Oh, God, that's so many. That's really nice. How many of you got them for free? What a solid business strategy. So we make funny stuff about surfing and skating, and we did stuff with Kook Slams, which is another Instagram. We sold out of these t-shirts pretty quick. And then we did something with Food Beast where it's pretty silly. It's just meant to be funny and tongue-in-cheek. It's sort of anti-fashion. So I wanted to get into my talk here, and I want to talk about working for yourself. And I want to give a little disclaimer here in that I don't know everything. So this disclaimer reads, while I'm an active practitioner of freelance, I do not have science-based evidence or clinical study to the claims that I will make on the topic of freelance. The entire talk is based on my anecdotal evidence. You might at times find yourself in disagreement, and you're free to debate these ideas. And however, I sincerely hold your best interest in mind in sharing this talk. If, in the words of C.S. Lewis, if it's not useful, throw it out. So I'm calling my talk. I had to come up with a topic name before I had a talk, so I came up with "Live, Freelance, or Die: How to Freelance Without Dying." It's pretty easy, actually. Just don't die. Talk's over. Thank you. So what is freelance? I think you pretty much all know what freelance is, but it's really about being independent and working for yourself. Instead of just having one boss, you have about 1,000 bosses. And a lot of people ask me if they're ready for freelance, and I've had a lot of people send me portfolios, and they want to do essentially what I'm doing, and they want advice on it. So I made this little flow chart or this Venn diagram about who should freelance. So in order to know if you actually can freelance, you have to have really like 3 things. Okay, you need to have like a great portfolio, which is the primary thing. Without a great portfolio, you will not be working. You need money in the bank. I would say at least 2 to 4 months of just cash money for you to just go broke on. And then you need an industry network. If you just have 1 or 2 of these things, you're kind of not in the primed position to be doing this. I would say if you only needed 2, I would say you need a great portfolio and money in the bank. Because an industry network, you could actually learn over time. You can find those people who you want to work with. And that's a big thing that I'm going to kind of talk about today. And what I'm going to teach you is how I find my clients and how I keep my clients. Who should not freelance? New or young creatives. I think if you're brand new to the profession, you should go work for somebody and spend some time underneath somebody, being mentored, being molded. For me, my first big job out of school was Billabong. Shouts to Billabong people. The main thing was that I had really bright artistic directors who were able to mold me into the designer that I am. I had been sent through the ringer. I had to understand the business of design in dollars and cents and how my design actually affected the bottom line of a business, which I think is very valuable for young creatives to learn. And the other people who are, if you have little or no work ethic, don't freelance. You will be on food stamps. Why freelance? I think there's a bunch of reasons why you'd want to go do it alone. You know, a good one would be you don't align with the goals of your current employer. Maybe they're doing something unethical, using a sweatshop or something to make their product, or your boss really wants to make America great again. The other reasons would be, you find your next move in the company is uninteresting. You don't want an art director job. You don't want a senior director job. And then the last reason was actually why I left, and that was because I was only exercising one muscle. This guy has one muscle. Have you seen this Lady in the Water movie? It's one of the worst movies ever made. And for that reason alone, it's worth watching. It's so bad. Rip M. Night Shyamalan. But how do you actually freelance? So I want to give you guys kind of a rundown of how I actually do it, how I think about it, but then I also want you to ask questions towards the end. It's going to be super basic, baseline, but then I'll talk about the intricacies of each project. It's 4 not so easy steps. They are not easy. You need to market yourself. You need to find and keep clients you want. You want to make great work, and then you need to bill for that great work. Billing is actually probably the easiest part of it, and we're not going to talk a ton about that because it's kind of boring. So the big thing is marketing yourself. You need to put work out there. You need to make cool shit in your free time. Josh Ariza, fashion misfit, said that. When I was working at Nike, I basically would draw these images in my free time around lunchtime. I would take about an hour, and I'd draw these heads, for lack of a better word. Then I would just post them to the internet and dribble. And I was a huge fan of this show, and I think everyone was a really big fan of the show who watched it. And eventually they gained some traction because I made sure to put my work everywhere. I put it on Instagram. At this time, Instagram wasn't really anything. It was so bad. I probably had 50 followers. But I remember the first time I actually got over 100 likes was because I posted Walter White's photo. So then AMC actually found me. Hey, Seth. And AMC found them, wanted to license them, and put them inside of a coffee table book that they gave to the entire cast and crew. So Bryan Cranston has this, Aaron Paul has this book, and everyone has it. They actually, as a thank you, sent me the book, but they also sent me some blue meth that was in the bag, for real. And it wasn't real meth. And I did it. I was high. No. I basically threw it away. I didn't even know it was in the bag. I got the thank you card, and I was like, that's great. They were like, and here's blue meth. I was like, where's the blue meth? And then I realized I had thrown it in the garbage can. And that whole day, I was like bummed about not having blue meth. I was so sad I didn't have my meth. So great work gets great work, I think, is principally it. I want you guys to really kind of put that one inside your mind. This one was said by Joshua Ariza, hand model, Ford agency. So if you're making great work, you're going to get other great work. It's principally, it makes sense when someone says it, but no one really ever says it. You're not going to get a great project from nothing. Okay, so you have to build something. So I got this really fun project from the Breaking Bad stuff. This is the Grumpy Cat Beverage Company. Anybody know Grumpy Cat? This actually ended up in a ton of stores, and a lot of people actually, what's that dubstep guy? The one with the half-shaved hair? Skrillex. He Instagrammed about it. And a lot of people said some heinous things on there. So don't read Instagram comments. So I also make these posters in my free time. It's like if some of my favorite cult movies were made into Mexican dramas. So we got Point Break as Punto Break. Face Off, which is a horrible movie. It's so good. The concept of the movie, imagine pitching it like these guys don't have any moles or a different body type. They're exactly the same. Their faces are just different, and we're going to switch them. Good, let's make it. So I made these posters, and Taco Bell saw them because they're like, oh, Spanglish, that's exactly what we are. And so they hired me to do a project where they moved their number one restaurant called Numero Uno, and they took it from LA and they drove it down to Orange County, and now it's sitting, I think, in their parking lot. It's a really cool building, but to commemorate the project, they made a poster and t-shirt. So I'll talk about licensing a little bit later, but just remember this project. How do you find clients? Okay, so we talked about marketing yourself. We know that you're going to need to make cool shit, which is probably the easiest part, but if you're not knowing how to make cool shit, I'll teach you about that later. You got to find clients, and you can't expect to have word-of-mouth clients all the time. I can't express this enough. This idea that you will just put your website up and people will come to you is just a total crapshoot. And here's a diagram to show that. Here are project inquiries through my site. The pink represents fun projects. The blue one is logos for your mom's Etsy store. So I think we can just get a picture of how good it is. If you want a dream client, you need to put your work directly in front of them. Look, if you're trying to solicit a bunch of work, you need to throw a really broad net, okay? So the way that I did that was I wrote basically one-line emails to every brand or company or person who was in a position of power that I wanted to work with. And I've literally written hundreds of these. I still write these. I wrote one to Adidas. I wrote one to ESPN. So the truth is you don't get a lot of responses from these emails. Maybe for me, roughly about a third of people respond to those emails. And then, maybe like a third of those who respond actually would hire me. Mostly it's people just busy and they don't have time to look through your portfolio. Or they looked through your portfolio and they're like, Breaking Bad heads, everyone's done that. So here's a good example of a project where I just threw an email straight to an agency that I wanted to work with, and right away they had work for me. So, I've just known a lot of graphic designers or creatives in general who don't want to sell their own work. I don't know why they wouldn't. You have to eat. But this project came out of that, and it's one of my favorite projects. And I worked really, really long on this project, and I only billed for about half my time because I really liked it that much. So principally, you need to make great work, okay? So this is a primary function of freelance. So if you're getting that work, you have to make it great. I hate the word great because every time you say make great, who do we think about? Donald Trump. So do a good job. That's the best advice that I have for you. You can work long hours on projects that you like. I mean, if you get the skateboard project as a dream project for you, you should put all this time in to make it awesome. And I wouldn't say, spin out your wheels working 80 hours a week, but if it's a good project, you can really leverage that to get better work later. Here's another example of a poster I did for the Red Bull Mega Slope. I worked probably 80 hours on this project and only billed for like half of it. And the project eventually got killed because there wasn't enough snow on the ground, but it's one of my favorite projects. So you can also turn average projects into great ones. Sorry, Chris. Most times you get a project, especially if it's like wedding invites. Wedding invites are hard to make cool because brides are hard to work with. And actually, this bride was really, really rad, and she let me do pretty much whatever I wanted. This is another project. I only billed for like a day on it, but I worked like a week on it. It turned out to be a really great project. And sometimes you don't even know that what you're making is bad. And this is the issue of working autonomously by yourself. And this goes back to the reason I was talking earlier about young designers and creatives should not go freelance. You need to be molded. You need to be mentored. So you need to, if you're working by yourself, and this is if you're a photographer, if you're running a business, you need to get a mentor. You need somebody who can tell you, who's been down that road, who can do it. And you need to get a creative community. This is a pretty strong creative community. This might be a good place to meet people and share work with. But the truth is, I really only share my work with like 5 people because those are the people that I trust. And if you show it to your mom, she's going to be like, I just don't like purple. And you're like, yeah, but how does it feel? Do you think it'll sell well? Like, yeah, but it's funny story. I'm going to hope Aunt Ellen never watches this. But one time I was talking to my Aunt Ellen, and she was like, what would be a good idea? Which is always the best way to start. What's a great idea? I'm about to hear a bad idea. You should put vegetables on T-shirts. I was like, what? Like as characters? Like character vegetables? Like they have faces? No, just vegetables. I was like, yeah, I should put vegetables on T-shirts. But you just like nodding like, that's a good idea. That was her idea. Don't take it. Don't make vegetable T-shirts. So I had a mentor who will review some of my work, especially my illustration work. I've never really drawn a fish before. They're really hard to draw. And so I sent this project after I had gotten really close, and I was just like, I need some final touches on this thing. I sent it to a mentor of mine, and he was able to give me some pointers. So sometimes what you're making is bad, and you don't even know. The other thing you need to do is you need to build people, okay? So this is probably the most boring part of freelance, most uninteresting one. But I put together some real best practices for who or how you should build. Typically you build at the end of the project. If it's a long project, you take half up front. You need to understand licensing. So that project with Taco Bell, I sold the artwork to them in poster form, and they wanted to use it again for a T-shirt. either sales or not. So they came back to me and I resold the artwork for them to use to be sold. So this is just one example of licensing, but if you're a freelancer, you should learn about licensing. A funny story is that a friend of ours got his photo taken by some photographers here, and he thought his face was just going to get used in some printed materials, and then he went to South Coast Plaza and saw his face on some billboards when he was walking with his kid, and he's like, that's me. And here I am standing next to this giant thing of me, and I think he got paid like $50. So I don't know. That's just understanding a little bit about licensing. And then I don't work with net 60 clients. That's just, honestly, it's really hard to do. I bill hourly by project and by rate, or by day rate. So that stuff is just so boring, but we need to get through it. Free work. Don't work for free. Almost never. I think there's really only like 3 reasons why you should work for free. One is that you want that potential client, okay? So that would be called spec work, but let's just say I wanted to work for Nike, so instead I designed a bunch of Nike t-shirts, and I showed it to them to show that I was capable of it. And either they bought it or they didn't, but it was unsolicited, and they knew that I could do the work, okay? So that would be like a good example of working for free. Another reason you might do that would be you're getting something of value in return. I designed something for my friend. He gave me a piece of furniture. And then the other reason you might want to do it is that you just really strongly believe in the business. Okay, so, it's a single mother who's starting a charity for sad puppies, and you're just like, that needs to exist. I'm going to do a logo for it. So that would be a good example of a business or, you might want to spend free time on. But largely, working for free is so bad for the industry, and it's bad for you. Don't answer the cattle calls for free work. We're having a contest. It's always a contest. We have a contest where you work for 40 hours on a project, and maybe we'll buy it. And we're not gonna pay you, but we will give you a shout out on Instagram. Our Instagram has 2,000 followers. So don't work for that. So that's basically the business of freelance for me. And I wanted to get through all that stuff so that if you were a creative photographer, writer, or whatever, that you could actually field questions off of me. So that's David S. Pumpkins. Any questions?